Airports are backing up again with travelers unable to reach their destinations as more and more flights in the U.S. across multiple different airlines are being canceled this Labor Day weekend. Folks have resorted to traveling by caravan, campers, travel trailers, RVs, Class A's, Class B's, fully converted vans. But Walmart is on high alert and has banned overnight camping in their parking lots, creating a shortage of safe, free places for Labor Day weekend travelers to rest. Now, you guys may be aware of this story about Walmart recently in the news. Breaking news yesterday, actually, slightly unrelated, but Walmart is on high alert. The Walmart in Tupelo, Mississippi, had an airplane circling it yesterday morning. The pilot, identified as Corey Patterson, has been arrested, taken into custody, and charged. And Walmart just continues to remain on high alert. And it is a tough time, actually, right now, as travelers are struggling to make flights and reach their destinations on the limited time that they have available, the off time that they have available from work for this vacation. And some U.S. airlines are delaying flights and canceling flights, which actually canceling flights would actually probably be better than the delay, because a canceled flight allows the passenger the ability to get a refund or no cost change to the flight, perhaps a credit to the airline. But a delay just wastes your time. It leaves you stuck in an airport, stranded, so to speak, not sure where you're going to end up, or when you're going to end up there. And we're seeing more of this. We saw this over at the beginning of summer, closer towards the 4th of July holiday weekend. Actually, my wife, Preparing for Survival, or now PFS on YT, actually brought you an update about airlines and their massive cancellations, leaving passengers and families pretty much just stranded at the airports with no real solution besides just sit and wait. And the airlines know that the longer that they delay the flights, and the more often they delay the flights, the less they have to cancel and lose money. But there's supposed to be some form of new oversight and some reform to the airline's operations and practices to make sure that the customers are no longer kind of left out in the cold, holding the bag and just stranded and delayed at the airports, which has pushed a lot of folks to not only avoid the high cost of travel through airlines and through airplanes and flights, like through Delta, through Southwest Airlines, through American Airlines, through Frontier, through Spirit Airlines. They've moved and switched to traveling by car once again. Although gas and diesel prices were relatively high, it was a safer bet that you would actually reach your destination closer to the time that you had planned without any unnecessary delays of being stuck in an airport. Which, honestly, the worst part about being stuck in an airport is the fact that if you want to eat, it's going to cost you probably 2 or 3 times more to eat inside of an airport than it would anywhere else. And that's just the price. The quantity and quality of food that you will receive from the airport is going to be subpar. But with that being said, long distances are being traveled. Rest is going to be required along these journeys, along these stints, even with multiple drivers taking turns. And Walmart once was a great place to safely park overnight and somewhat of a little bit of a stealth camping mode, so to speak. There's other places that you can actually find. I use an app. Me personally, I use an app. It's called iOverlander, and it shows me different places and gives reviews, even has some pictures. And, these are safe places where you could theoretically stealth camp overnight, and you didn't have to worry about the property owner asking you to leave. Well, a few short years ago, Walmart had an incident, which you guys may or may not be aware of, but Walmart continues to break the news with a story of someone, a gentleman who was using the Walmart parking lot for theoretically that intended purpose as a place to park and stay overnight. But what he did was he was cooking on a portable cooktop, which I highly recommend for a lot of folks if you don't have a portable cooktop, especially one that's run on propane. We've got one in the van, and it's just a nice little backup for an alternative means of cooking, especially if you don't have power because it runs on propane. So actually, I'm gonna do a little bit of a review on that in a future video. If you guys want to see it, drop a comment, let me know. So he was cooking on this portable cooktop. He got done, he packed it up, he put it back inside of his vehicle. And apparently he didn't allow it to cool off. He proceeded to put some bedding on top of it. And then he went inside the Walmart to go do some shopping. Well, He was parked next to another family's camper, which had children in it. And apparently, I'm telling you guys a story from memory. Apparently, the children were left alone in that camper as that parent or guardian was inside of Walmart doing whatever they needed to do. And during this time, the portable stove that wasn't cooled off then heated up the bedding, set fire to that vehicle, which ultimately caught the camper on fire, which was parked next to it. And you can understand the dangers and disasters that occurred after that. Long story short, Walmart has pretty much reduced and eliminated the ability to allow you to safely park in their parking lots because of such. And now there's a shortage of safe places to park overnight because Walmart stepped up and took responsibility for the fact that they didn't provide enough oversight and protection and security and staffing, training, and notices and warnings. You got to put these warnings on these packages, otherwise these idiots will, Anyway, so Walmart stepped up, took responsibility, and thus reduced the amount of Walmarts that will be allowed to let people, customers, campers, travelers, nomads park in their parking lots overnight. So we're running out of safe places to park. We're running out of safe places to stealth camp. And this ultimately is going to put a strain more so on the middle class as travel becomes more and more expensive. Traveling, especially for vacation, is, something that people would used to look forward to. And I think they look forward to it even more so now for the fact that there was a brief period in time where we really couldn't do this. You guys know why. And then, things started to open back up. And, you were, free to move about the country. And now people want to do it. But now it's just getting so expensive that it's becoming harder and harder to make it happen, on top of the struggles of travel and delays and, whatever laws and requirements or mandates are imposed wherever you're going, at the drop of a hat. But you add on fuel costs, you add on higher insurance for vehicles, you add on just the price of cars and trucks in general. Like they're going through the roof. It just makes it harder and harder to travel, which I'm actually happy to see. Like right now, there's nobody here at this pool, but yesterday, and I'm sure later on today, it was packed, and it will be packed again with families having a good time for Labor Day weekend, kids running around, having a good time, laughing, jumping in the water, playing with the toys. And it was a really good vibe. It was great to see the people back at it again, for those who can. Because honestly, I'm not going to say that the economy is pretty much crashing, but what is going on is that the middle class is going to get squeezed. The middle class is getting squeezed by this economy. And they're going to be the middle class, the lower income earners, the minimum wage earners. They're going to be the ones that are going to have the hardest time getting through everything that's going on, and some things that we don't even know are going on just yet. Probably good time now, after Labor Day settles down, to start kind of having a talk with some of your family members and your kids and say, hey, this year Christmas may be a little light. We need to save money. We don't need to waste money on these things that aren't really going to help us when we're fighting inflation. We're in a recession and our jobs are at risk. And when I say our jobs are at risk, more than likely, for the most part, the middle class jobs are at risk because of inflation, because of pullback, because of buyer confidence, because of the ability to have the disposable income for some of these purchases, some of these non-essentials, some of these wants, not needs. And you may want to have that talk with the kids and say, this Christmas may be a little light, and Santa Claus is backed up. He gonna have to get to you next year, rather than stretching yourself further than you can actually physically, realistically manage, and then finding yourself in a bind right after, wasting too much money during the holiday season. And I think that the retailers are bracing for that, because the problem is the middle class, honestly, middle class and lower middle class, you got to understand that your back is against the wall. If you earn $50,000 or less, mathematically, it's very difficult to pay your bills, get by, make ends meet. You're probably, definitely more than likely living paycheck to paycheck. And honestly, you're one paycheck away from being potentially homeless. We did the math yesterday between the essential necessities of shelter, food, insurance, a cell phone. It's a necessity. You need a cell phone. And the basics, just the basics to get by. And on $50,000 a year at a relatively conservative tax bracket, it puts the average person, assuming they can, now this is assuming you can find a place to rent for $1,200 a month and your car payment doesn't exceed $400 a month, that you would be at best able to save or have $500 a month left over, as long as you didn't see any accidents, any hiccups, any surprise expenses, any mechanical breakdowns on a vehicle, any flat tires needed. It would leave you with a cushion of about $500 a month to get by. Now, $500 a month, what does that mean? That means each month you have the potential to stash away and basically cash stuff $500 a month to help you start saving some money, have a backup plan, have a cushion, have a safety net. First month you got 500, second month you got another 500, so now you got 1,000. Third month you got 15. Fourth month you got 2,000. If you can make it 4 months, if you can make it 4 whole months with no issues, you could potentially have $2,000 saved up. Well, what happens then? Well, what happens then is you probably want to start looking towards a means and methods of making that money, that $500 a month that is now turned to $2,000 in savings, to start making money for you. Because if your monthly cushion is $500 or even less, then you need to find a way to make more, so that each month you can have more. Because what that means is inflation is going to slowly chip away at that. So if right now, today, based on those figures, $500 is where you end up with every month, let's just say 6 months from now, it's going to be $450 because of inflation. If $500 goes, it doesn't go as far. So this is unfortunately the sad truth that we're in right now, where the middle class is basically struggling. And more than likely, if we were to see a drastic decline in the economy, if we were to see like a deep recession, it would basically, and my brother, he explained this very well yesterday. Actually, my brother and PFS on YT explained this very well yesterday as we were sitting here talking. And you got to look at inflation as the water. And we'll look at it like this. Inflation is the water, and then the classes, the income brackets of the classes are levels of a building. And so we're going to imagine that these townhomes here, these rental condos from Vacasa, from Airbnb, from Verbo, we're going to imagine they're right here on the water. So the water is inflation. This is the example that they gave. It was a great example. The water is inflation. And you got the working class poor on the lower levels. You got the middle class on the second levels. And you got the high income earners on the top. And, up above that, the 1%, whatever. So inflation, they're saying inflation's the water. Well, as inflation continues to rise, it pretty much starts to wipe out those at the bottom. So as the water starts to rise, the working class poor on the first level is going to get flooded, and they're going to be displaced, and ultimately they're going to be eliminated. As the water continues to rise, as inflation continues to go up, which we have seen month after month after month, as the Fed and Jerome Powell just spoken here recently in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Inflation, interest rate changes coming for September in just a few short days, saying that we are going to feel some pain. Families are going to feel some pain. Businesses are going to feel some pain. As that inflation water keeps rising and hits the next level for the middle class, then the middle class gets wiped out. And then the water just keeps rising. Now, here's the thing. Odds are, historically, the water will never rise high enough to really affect the high income earners at the top. Nor will the water rise up above the rooftops where the 1% reside. But that is essentially what we're dealing with right now with our economy, with the job market, with income, with inflation, with the middle class with the working class poor, the folks that work just enough and make just enough to be broke. They don't even have the opportunity and ability to save that $500 a month. That's what we're experiencing. That's what we're experiencing. And the suggestion is, one, have a plan so you don't just get flooded out, And two, you need to get to the next story. You need to get to the next floor. You need to get to the rooftop. That way you are insulated. That way you are protected. That way you're theoretically safe from the rising tides of inflation. Now, with that being said, let's just say the water rises to the top. Let's just say it gets halfway up to the third floor and the high income earners start to feel it. That water is inflation, by the way, if you're just now tuning in. Let's just say it gets up that high. What happens? Well, they're stuck. They're stuck up there. Why? Because the floors below them are flooded. They can't, unless you're going to swim through the building to get out, you're stuck up there. And the folks below you, the middle class and the working class poor that were actually propping you up, they're all gone. So then eventually you're going to collapse, and maybe even that building's going to fall down because, it's structurally compromised because of all the water, all the inflation. And that's kind of where we're at. The working class is poor, is potentially going to get wiped out. And then the middle class is next. They could potentially get wiped out. And then the high income earners are going to feel the pain because the working class poor and the middle class aren't there anymore to be shoppers at their businesses that they own, to increase the value of their investments, the rental properties that they have that they rent out to these folks from time to time. They're not going to be there. So ultimately, the high income earners and the 1% need to be doing their damnedest to make sure that the middle class and the working class don't get wiped out. Otherwise, they're not going to have customers. They're not going to have a target market. And honestly, they're going to have to start then doing a lot of things themselves that they didn't used to do before because the people below them they're not there anymore. And also, if the water stayed that high, if inflation stayed that high, well, guess what? You're no longer on the top floor. You are now the bottom floor or the only floor. And then you'd have to build up from there. And then you would be lower on the income bracket. So just a little visual comparison, explanation of how we saw inflation and what could potentially happen as the waters of inflation continue to rise and continue to affect the different income brackets and income levels, which is part of why I continuously bring you guys information so you know what's going on. You can plan for it, you can brace for it, but also you can do your best to try to get out of that situation and try to up your floor, but also helping other people along the way, because you don't want to shit on anybody. So that's why I throw these ideas out to you guys and put the links in the description so y'all can join the groups and figure out how y'all can do side hustles, start your own small businesses, generate income producing YouTube channels, and know how that is done and how it's done every single day and how you can do the same thing. And that's why I bring it to you, because I don't want to see people get flooded out. I don't want to see people get eliminated. I don't want to see that tragedy, because honestly, if that were to actually happen, it would probably be worse than anything that we've experienced so far. And then you add on top of that the mental health issues that would come with it, more of the breaking news stories that we would see at Walmart with dangerous airplanes flying overhead and people just losing it, on the edge, just scared and needing help in a crisis, needing someone to talk to. So I try to bring you guys a little bit of news. I try to bring you guys a little bit of reality. And I try to bring you guys a little bit of motivation so that you can do it. You can get out of this. You can try to mitigate the damage of the waters of the rising inflation. But you got to do it sooner than later before it's too late, and then you run out of time, and then the water's already getting in. Inflation's already too high. There's really not much you can do. And we hear stories. Bed Bath & Beyond closing 150 stores. Thousands of employees losing their jobs, but more than likely these employees are going to be the middle class workers. I think Ford laid off a few hundred employees, and maybe we avoid this whole disaster, this whole catastrophe. I'm not 100% sure how that would happen right now without that pain that Jerome Powell warned us about. But me personally, I would rather do what I could to plan to avoid it myself than sit back and wait and see what happens, and or just rely on the government to keep me and my family safe and fed and, able to survive and a roof over our heads. Because, I mean, we saw it the other day. Anybody relying on EBT and SNAP benefits to buy food and groceries were pretty much up a creek without a paddle, because last Sunday the system shut down and there was nothing they can do. And if they didn't have a backup plan, then they were just going to go hungry. You guys think about it. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. Appreciate you watching. You guys have a great and safe, enjoyable rest of your Labor Day weekend, and I'll see y'all real soon. Take care. Bye.